Hi there, I'm Monica Lindstrom, and this is Legally Speaking. Today we're going to talk about the O.J. Simpson case. You see, it's been 20 years since the case started, and within those 20 years, there's been stories after stories and shows and documentaries about what really happened with the O.J. case, from the murders themselves all the way up through today's time. And I have to say that it really has become a phenomenon. It was really big back then, meaning 20 years ago, but it's almost as if each year it just gets bigger and bigger, and it is a phenomenon. So people often ask me the question, would the verdict be different if the trial happened today? And my answer would be, as all lawyer answers go, possibly. And the reason why I say that is because we have another phenomenon that is going on right now, and it's called social media. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, you name it, social media is everywhere. Now think about if that existed at the time 20 years ago when the O.J. case started and during the trial. It would be absolutely crazy in the sense that although the jurors back then did not hear several key pieces of evidence that I'll talk about in a minute, they likely would have heard about them right now. So think about it this way. 20 years ago, the jury, really all they heard about was the DNA evidence. When Marcia Clark was prosecuting this case, there were several things that she didn't bring in because she and the rest of the prosecution team really believed that they would get that guilty verdict based on DNA evidence. Well, I say that now, and of course we all think, yeah, DNA evidence, that's very telling, that's strong evidence. But back then, your average American and your average juror had no idea what DNA evidence was. Even though the prosecution brought in a lot of experts to explain what it was still a very hard concept. So many argue, they say that one of the reasons why O.J. walked in that case was because the jury just simply didn't understand all of the DNA evidence. Well, here's a couple other things that the jury, not that they didn't understand, but that they did not actually get to see or hear. The very first one was the chase. Almost everybody knows about the white Bronco and the chase. It was all over TV. In fact, they broke into primetime TV with coverage of the Bronco Chase. So even though the jury knew about it, it was not presented in court, which means that they weren't supposed to take that into consideration, even though that is big evidence of guilt. The next information that didn't come out in trial was that there were actually items found within the Bronco that also pointed to guilt. For example, there's reports that there was a fake beard found in there along with O.J.'s passport and lots of cash, like $8,000 in cash in the Bronco. The jury didn't hear that. The next thing, there was a witness that saw O.J. drive wildly by Nicole's house that night, but the witness wasn't called onto the stand during the trial. Another man saw O.J. dump a bag at the airport. It was a duffel bag, saw him throw it away. Some reports say that that had the bloody clothes in it, the bloody knife, but that witness wasn't called for trial either. There was also a knife salesman who would be able to testify that he sold a knife to O.J. Simpson in the weeks prior to the murders that were very similar, if not the same, as the murder weapon, even though that murder weapon wasn't recovered. He didn't testify at trial either. And the last piece of evidence that I want to point out is that a jail guard heard O.J. confess to the killings to a clergy person. Now, the prosecution chose not to call some of these witnesses because apparently some of them sold their stories to the media outlets, such as Hard Copy and a couple other ones, and the prosecution just didn't want to deal with the credibility issues. Regardless of the outcome back then or what it would be today, it was in fact the start of the courtroom obsession, is what I'm going to call it. Ever since the O.J. Simpson trial was publicized and put on TV, America has been really interested in what happens inside the courtroom. In fact, court TV took off after that trial. It was very, very interesting, and America wanted to know what was going on. It really ignited our interest in the courtroom drama. You can follow me on social media. You can also hear me on KTAR Sunday nights on The Agenda. My co-host is Joe Huizenga. You can also hear me during the week on Mac and Gatos. They're on from Monday through Friday from 3 to 7 p.m. Until next time, take care.